quilters, it's Katrina from Sunshower Quilts, and today's video is on the Accuquilt Go 2-inch square die. Now this is a great die. I love using 2-inch squares, and I'll tell you why. You can probably see these quilts in the background here. This quilt is all made out of 2-inch squares, and I do a process that I call a leaders and enders. I'm doing this video today because I find that a lot of people don't understand what leaders and enders are exactly. So this quilt was done while I was piecing other quilts. This queen size Christmas quilt started off as a table runner, but next thing I knew I had enough for a queen size. I've made a lot of different things out of 2-inch squares, including jackets. This is my latest one, which is still a work in process, and I'll tell you about that later. But right now, let's go into how to make your 2-inch squares out of your scraps. So this is the 2-inch square die by Accuquilt, and it has 6 different spots on it. But before you do anything at all, you want to just mark the die lines with your silver Sharpie. I like the silver Sharpie because it shows up. It shows up much better on this gray foam than the black Sharpies. And these are available at office supply places. So when you're done piecing for the day, or you're cutting, or you're appliquing, we often have these little pieces of fabric, kind of too small to do a lot with, but too big to throw out. So what we're going to do to cut these into something usable is place the squares on the die so that they cover the die lines, and I would just kind of load this up, and when you get to 6 layers, that's how many layers the Go can handle. Also, another great thing to put on this are your leftover binding strips. And you can see I've just pressed out that binding crease. So once you've done that, I would just continue to load that. Lay your mat across the top, making sure that all your fabric's covered, and put this through your Go. Turn that over, and you will have perfect, beautiful die-cut 2-inch squares with very, very little waste. Like, this is much more easy to throw out than that. So once you have these, eventually what you're going to have is something that looks an awful lot like this. When I first started doing my leaders and enders, I had these in a smaller tin, but then this grew and grew and grew. And you can see I've got just about everything in here. Anything goes in a leaders and enders project. So I just bundle all mine up. I know other people that do it much neater than I do. Okay, we're over at the sewing machine now for the sewing part of the leaders and enders. So when you're starting to piece or anything like that, a lot of quilters will put just a couple random scraps of fabric under the needle there, just so that they don't have to break their thread. And some people call them buddies or thread savers. I call them leaders and enders, like Bonnie Hunter does in her books. But what I do is I take 2 2-inch squares that I've pre-cut using my Accuquilt Go die cutter, and I put them right side together. Now when I start to piece for the day, I just put that under my foot and just do a 1/4 inch seam. Now I would continue on with my piecing, putting my pieces underneath, and you would chain piece if you wanted to do lots and lots of, 500 half square triangles or something like that. So now I've done 500 half square triangles, and what I would do is I would put underneath again another 2 2-inch squares. So here's another set, and I just pick them out really, really randomly. I try not to have 2 blues together or 2 purples together, or definitely not 2 of the same actual piece of fabric. Okay, and then pretend this was 500 half square triangles. What I would do once I have a whole bunch of these is take them to the ironing board, and I would press them toward whatever the darker color is. You will be surprised at how fast you will have just a total bunch of 2 patches. Once you do, what I do instead of doing 2 1 patches, sorry, is I take 2 patches and I just butt those seams together to get a 4 patch. And I would do this now as my leader and ender, so piecing that. And then before you know it, you will have absolute just stacks and stacks and stacks of 4 patches, which you will quite simply, again, take to the ironing board and press to a side, pick a side. Then once you have lots and lots of these, you would again butt the seams and sew your 2 4 patches together until you have lots and lots and lots of these 8 patches. Again, I think you're seeing a pattern now. You will take these, butt the seams, and if you've pressed these really well and paid attention, all of your seams will butt. Sometimes I'll pin all of these together, and sometimes I'll just leave them. Then you're going to sew a 1/4 inch down there, and again, get rid of all those. Pressing to a side, you will have a 16 patch. Isn't that beautiful? At this point, I will take, once I have a bunch of them, I'll take them and with my 6.5 inch square ruler, I'll just square them up. Sometimes there's little teeny bits to shave off. And this becomes the foundation for all of my projects. That Christmas quilt, that queen size Christmas quilt, was pieced exactly using this method. And all of the seams butted, all of the lines were really, really straight. Like I said, I've made jackets and everything else using this method. And what's neat about this method is that you don't even notice that you're piecing all of these little itty bitty 1.5 inch finished squares. You'll have instant fabric before you know it. And it's kind of a something from nothing, which is a great thing. So I just wanted to point out that the pattern that comes with your 2 inch square die, the Squares and More baby quilt, has a little 16 patch in there, and it can be done absolutely the same way that I've done all of my Leaders and Enders projects. Now, I just wanted to go over, this is my latest one that I'm doing right now, and it's still a Leader and Ender, but it's done a little bit differently. So here's your 16 patch, but it's alternating with this block here, which is just 4 of those, and I do those exactly the same by sewing directly across a 2 inch square. So it's very, very easy. I can do another video on that if you guys don't understand what I'm saying. What I will say about doing these Leaders and Enders projects is it's still good to have some type of a plan. So for this one here, this was all Christmas prints, so red and green, but also Christmas beiges, and actually some Christmas blacks in there if you can find them. And so this works really, really harmoniously. If you're going to just do whatever fabrics, it's always good to either put in a white or a black somewhere for the eye to rest, or in the case of my jacket here, to put in some creams and off-whites to give your eye a place to rest. If you have just a jumble of stuff, then it's very, very loud to my eye. Anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them here and I will try my best to answer them. Or you can go on to my blog, sunshowerquilts.blogspot.com, and you can also join me on Facebook, facebook.com/sunshowerquilts, where we have a lot of fun. I hope that you've enjoyed it, and happy quilting, everyone!